Hey guys, what's up? It's Jade here, and today we are back with another video, and I finally have a message to preach. But before we get into the message I want to preach, it is time to share with you guys the Bible verse of the day. Alright, so today we are going to be reading from Isaiah 41:10. This is in the Old Testament, and I'm reading from the ESV translation, and again, you can use whatever translation you want. The message is still the same. So, anyways, here it is. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. So basically, what this is saying is that, you know, don't be afraid because God is with you. God will guide your path in life. God will guide your steps. God will be there for you wherever you are. Don't be in fear if he promises you to do something. Don't be scared. And I mean that is hard because fear is a natural emotion for us. We all easily are scared to do something or have fear when it comes to doing something, but in whatever walk of life we are in right now, God is going to be there, and He is there for us. He will be there with us every second, every millisecond, just any time of the day, any moment, any minute, just all of that. He will always be there, no matter what we're going through, no matter what we feel in life, no matter how hard life gets for us. Because let's be honest, life definitely gets hard. He's always gonna be there. So yeah, I just wanted to share some of that, and I hope if anyone is struggling with this will help you. But anyways, aside from that, let's finally get into today's message. Okay, so I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who goes to my church. I was texting her, and I had some pretty good ideas about what I was thinking about preaching, but I got off onto a tangent, which is very typical for me to get off on a tangent. And I was describing a situation about something that happened about like ooh 6 years ago, maybe back in 2020, when I first moved to South Carolina, and how like I wasn't really like treated as well in the first few months, and like once people actually started to get to know me, they started to treat me better. Or like it was probably also once actually played the guitar at the talent show, people were like wowed by that, so they really started to have a conversation with me. But when I think, sorry, the lawnmower noise out there is distracting me. But when I think about that, I think about everything too, and especially how relationships are now and what I came to learn. And, you know, let me say something. In 2020, I was not a Christian. I didn't become a Christian until September. I didn't give my life to Christ until I think September 17th, 2021. So yeah, this took a while basically for me to get to. Um, and because South Carolina is part of the Bible Belt, the neighborhood I lived in was full of Christians, and they didn't really treat outsiders. At least people like me, they didn't really treat me that well in the first few months. And with the way that they treated my parents and stuff too, like we act nice, Southern hospitality and all, but then oh yeah, we're gonna be fake to you within like a few months later or whatever. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk today. How should Christians treat non-believers? I think the most important thing starting off for people who are Christians and encounter non-believers is don't be so quick to point out sin that you notice in them. You know, like for example, what it says in Matthew. So let's quickly read through Matthew 7:1 through 5, because this is all about judging others. And this applies to both people who encounter relationships with believers and people who encounter relationships with non-believers. Because let's keep in mind, we are not the ultimate judge. Are we really the ones who are going to decide who goes to heaven and who goes to hell? I don't see that you're God, so I don't believe so. I don't think so. So honestly, here's what it says, right? So let's start at Matthew 7:1. Judge not, for you be not judged, but you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there is a log in your own eye? You hypocrite! First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. And what that's talking about basically is don't judge. You shouldn't judge someone else, especially when they sin, when you have done a sin yourself, first of all, and you are not perfect. Okay? Are you really the one who's gonna say, "Oh, well, you see, you did this sin. Oh, you're not gonna go to heaven because you did that." Are you God? Do you really think you're God? Because if you think you're God, you're not a Christian. If you truly believe that you are God and that you will have the judgment to decide whether someone goes to heaven or hell, you are not a Christian. Okay? And I'm just making that clear. And that's going to sound harsh, but it's the real, actual truth. Because God is the one who will actually determine in the end who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. And it's going to be his judgment that stands forward in front of what we think. Just because somebody does one sin doesn't mean they're going to go to hell. It's all about accepting Jesus into your life, having a relationship with Jesus, and using that. So, if you immediately encounter someone who's not a believer and you think that what they're doing in their life is sin, don't poke out their sin, because what you're doing is you're driving them away from Christianity. You're just making them uncomfortable. And yeah, by the way, I have a little bit of an experience with this, and it's not exactly like a sin experience, but this is an experience I had that kind of nearly drifted me away from Christianity for a while. So when I was 16, and it was only like I think a few months I was living in South Carolina at this time, like maybe 4, 5, 6. I don't even want to say the next number because I know someone's gonna make a comment about that. So yeah, get trolled. Anyways, yeah, anywhere within like close to spring, close to summer, somewhere within there, spring or summer. Anyways, I remember two girls who were like, one was about the age of 9, and the other was about the age of 8. They came up to me when I was 16, and I was just out in the neighborhood enjoying my day, minding my own business. Just I don't even know if I was walking or skateboarding or what, and they come over to me, and the first thing they start yelling at me is, "Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God?" And they're like, "You're going to go to hell if you don't believe in God." And at this time, I wasn't even a believer. I was an agnostic at the time, so like, I didn't believe in like God. I didn't believe in like the God that obviously we as Christians believe in. I believed in like different types of things, and I didn't really believe in Christianity. I believed in like different things I've heard from like world history in the past or whatever. I didn't really believe in like Christ like I do now. But they ran up to me yelling that at me, and due to my fear of being ostracized, which what I mean by being ostracized is them not letting me play with them, because even though yes I was a teenager at the time, I wanted people to like actually have a friendship with and play with, and some of the kids that played with the younger kids or like their older siblings. So, at least it wasn't just me playing with a bunch of little kids. There was older siblings involved too. So that I could actually become friends with. But yeah, due to my fear of being ostracized by everybody, I lied and said, "Yes, I believe in God." And they're like, "Good, because if you don't believe in God, you're gonna go to hell." And I remember it just made me uncomfortable. Like, why would you go up to someone just yelling that? Like, I understand, yes, it's a good idea to preach. You should definitely preach the gospel, but you shouldn't do it in such a way where it drives people away and you scare people. Because I'm not going to lie, that made me uncomfortable. That kind of scared me in a way. Like, it was. And that's not what we're supposed to be doing as Christians. If we're going to spread the good news, we ought to do it in a better way. So how should we do that? Well, there's a verse actually about how we should do that. Okay, so it says right here in Colossians 4, 5 through 6, "Walk in wisdom toward outsiders, making the best use of the time. Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know you ought to answer each person." So what it's saying is we should not be rude, we should not be judgmental, we should not be forceful, like how I was approached towards people who are non-believers. We ought to be very nice, full of wisdom, and treat them how you want to be treated. Oh, and there's a verse about that too. Let's look at that one. It says right here in Luke 6:31, and as you wish that others would do to you, do so to them. Which means, the golden rule of treat others how you would want to be treated. So, like we could reverse the roles here. What if I was those girls and was yelling to them about that stuff? They would be frightened. I think they would feel the same way I did, whether they whether even if they were non-believers. And that's why I think it's important that as non-believers we don't be so forceful to bring people the gospel. We don't be so hateful. We can't be so judgmental. If we do that stuff, what you're doing is you're leading people away from God. Now I'm not saying don't be truthful. Of course, you should be truthful, but really, to bring up hell because someone doesn't believe, that's just gonna drive people away. That's something that I think should be shared later on. That's something that's not what you should do on your first encounter of preaching the gospel to somebody. Because that is just how you make people fearful of God and make people look at God with this negative mindset. And that's not what we want, because God is a loving God. He loves us. He unconditionally loves us. Is so clear, and it says that. But like, if our goal is to be more like Jesus, then we ought to treat others how Jesus did. Jesus hung out with sinners. Jesus hung out with non-believers. Jesus hung out with tax collectors. Matthew, hello. But you know what Jesus said? Did he ever say anything rude to them? Did he ever say, "Oh, you're so dirty and wicked"? Did he ever say, "Oh, you're bad for not following me," or all this other stuff to those people? No. All he did, what he said was, "Follow me," and those people learned to follow Jesus over time. Those people came to recognize their sins over time. Those people came most people came to learn about Jesus not because they were forced, but because they wanted to. And that's the thing. That's how we should be approaching non believers. We should not be so forceful. Like, why would you be hateful to that person? You want that to happen to you? Do you think you should get that kind of treatment? No, you wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want someone to be hateful towards you. It could be like, let's put in another scenario. Okay, what if we had a person of another religion who was saying that you're gonna go to hell for not believing in their religion, but you're a Christian? Well, you're gonna feel a little bit off, aren't you? Aren't you gonna feel a little bit scared, a little bit fearful, a little bit, like uncomfortable even? That's normal. And like we need to think about that when we're interacting with non-believers. We should not be so hateful, so out there. Yes, preach the good news, tell them what Jesus did in your life, but don't be so uptight and hardcore. I will say, those girls, they were kids at the time, they probably didn't know any better, but the thing is like when I have children, I don't want my children to do something like that. They want to share the gospel with other children. They should be very kind and accepting. They should greet others of how Jesus would greet others. Jesus wouldn't be rude. Jesus wouldn't have been rude to me back then. Jesus would have wanted me to listen to him and to follow him and to know what real love is like, because Jesus' love is that we need to accept others no matter what. You don't have to agree with a person's lifestyle, okay? Yes, you can recognize that something that someone does that is really sinful, but you can be, you may not agree with it. That's fine. You don't have to agree with it, but you shouldn't be disrespectful towards someone. Accept the person, love the person, hate the sin is a great saying in my opinion, and is one that I think people should very much follow. Because we're called to love others. That's what Jesus wants, is for us to love others. We shouldn't be putting down others because they aren't like us. So I'm gonna go into another story about what happened back when I was a non-believer. And yeah, I'm just gonna go into it. It's a little hard for me to explain right now. But anyways, So when I was still 16, I was hanging out with at a neighbor's house, and they had a trampoline in their backyard, and I used to go on this trampoline at times, and just hang out with the children, that I was trying to be friends with. Because here's the thing too, is that eventually my parents actually became friends with the parents of the children, because I was starting to hang out more often. Like, all I wanted was just to be accepted, okay? And honestly, I kind of think I wanted to have more of a relationship with the parents than I did with the actual children, because I won't lie, I was a bit, I guess I was a little bit mature for my age. I don't know. I really can't say much. I mean, I was 16, I was still pretty stupid at the time. And I'm not saying 16-year-olds are stupid, but me at least, I was a bit stupid back then. Anyways, moving forward, to stop getting so off topic, um, what was I gonna say? So, yeah, so the people that, I was over at the neighbor's house on their trampoline, and now there's one neighbor who I have who was 2 years younger than me. So I think she knew that I wasn't a Christian. So she thought that I believed in things like the zodiac stuff. Now, look, this is my personal opinion, okay? And you don't have to agree with it if you're a non believer watching this. Personally, I don't believe in the zodiac stuff, okay? Because especially when they mention that, oh, Scorpios, they're hypersexual. I'm a Scorpio and I am in no way hypersexual at all. No way am I like that. Because I would definitely be, I think, I'm not even gonna get into it, but I'm definitely not hypersexual, is all I'm going to say, okay? I'm, so, that was already kind of like a given to me that, oh, just because I was born a certain time of the year doesn't mean that's what it makes me. But of course, because when someone that's used to growing up in the Bible Belt finally learns about you, they think that you believe in like all that type of stuff. It's like, no, no, I didn't believe really that in that type of stuff. And to be honest, because I think it was said, it made me want to believe in that type of stuff. Like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is a sign. And I did try it for like maybe a month later that year into like horoscopes and things, and it just didn't make sense to me. It just I just moved away from it. Like I just didn't really understand it. Same thing with the tarot cards. It's just it didn't really speak to me. And tarot cards made me scared because of the one that where it would say like if you got this, you're screwed basically. So in all honesty, all it did was like push me away. That's like it like well that stuff in general because of like how I didn't understand it, but just to be judged so off the bat for something like that just because you don't believe in Christianity is pretty out there. Like, I don't know why she thought I was that way, and I'm honestly like, this is 6 years ago. It really doesn't matter to me anymore, especially because I'm a changed person. But still, it's just like, it was just so quick to judge, in my opinion. And let's not stop there, okay? So even though I'm a Christian, my parents are not Christians. They're not believers in Christ. You know, I don't really know personally what their actual beliefs are. I think they're just really for the most part like either atheist or agnostic. But all these people in my neighborhood, right, claim to be Christians. They claim to be Christians, right? You know, they they go to church, they read the Bible, but the way that they acted in the neighborhood was quite different at times. They would be nice to my parents at times and then just stop being nice to them out of nowhere. And I don't know if it's because my parents were strongly opinionated or whatever, or my parents were like different because oh yeah, everyone's from South Carolina, but then you have the one house of like three New Yorkers that move in, and it's like, oh goodness, oh New Yorkers, oh man, this is bad. This is like it's like Satan moved into this neighborhood because we got New Yorkers. Oh no, I'm just joking, but like New York culture is very different from Southern culture. Okay, we're very outspoken and we're very honest people, and we will speak our mind. Of course, we don't have to speak everything, but we are the type of people to be quite genuine and quite out there with what we say. And by quite out there, I mean, like, yes, we will literally say what we want to say. Um, and I don't think everyone was really pleased about that. So they would, yeah. So like I said, they would be nice to my parents, inviting my parents over for dinner and stuff like that. And inviting, saying really nice things to my parents, like, "Oh, I like your daughter," and having nice conversations with my parents. They would all be drinking outside and stuff like that, and they would all be having a swell time until people started being fake to each other, until people started saying things against their neighbors, until people started turning on one another, until basically everyone had some reason to be against my parents and would never tell me, but I would hear from my parents themselves about it. Cause there's a reason why we don't really communicate with our neighbors anymore. And I think even the neighborhood themselves, like all the moms have issues with each other, all the parents have issues with each other, and it's just kind of weird. Now look, I'm not saying it's not normal to have issues with someone. We're all going to have issues with people eventually in our life. But to go around and gossip about it is something else, in my opinion. Like, and here's the thing, right? I'm making this video, but I'm not giving out any names. You guys don't know who my neighbors are, okay? And I don't even live with those neighbors anymore. This is all from the past. My parents still live around these people. They still live in the same street with these people. And yeah, there's still stuff from 6 years ago that, has pushed them away. And when you claim to be a Christian and you do something hurtful to another person, to a non believer especially, and let's focus on the part of where someone's not a believer. What you're doing is you're basically showing them this is what it's like to be a Christian. You claim to be a Christian, you go to church, you read the Bible, you put your hands up when you worship, all that other stuff. But then this is how you're gonna act. This is how you're gonna act towards other people. You're giving a bad and negative representation of Christianity. And I think this is even why some people in my generation are against Christianity. People are so used to being raised in where Christians are hateful, where Christians put you down, where Christians are absolutely mortified by something you have, by something, by some, by just being yourself. And it's not how it should be. And I know not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but I don't believe that we should be putting people down when they sin. Situations happen in life, no matter how much you want to admit. And let's also be honest about one thing. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. No one in this world is perfect except Jesus. And yes, you could use that as a little excuse for why you did what you did. But let's let's be honest. Were you ever thinking about God in that moment when you claimed to be a Christian to somebody? Did you think it was okay to make to say a statement and be fake to someone when you claim to be a Christian? Is that what you want Christianity to be about? Is that how you plan to bring people to the Lord? Because let me tell you something, it's certainly not how I plan to have it happen. If I meet someone who's a non-believer, all I'm gonna do is have a conversation with them. And maybe it's because I remember still the time when I wasn't a believer, the time before I wasn't reborn, the time before I was still living in sin. Maybe it's because of that. It's still in my memory. But you want to know something? Even though I still remember it, let me say one thing. Even though I wasn't a believer back then, I never once said anything disrespectful to what they believed in. I never once said anything I actually believed in with Christianity. You know why? Because I respected their beliefs. They wanted to believe in God. That was cool. Good for them. If I actually had complaints, I would. You know who I would go to? Someone else who wasn't a believer. My mom. I would go to her and talk about it. I wouldn't go up to these people and hurt them. I wouldn't ostracize them. I wouldn't say anything rude to them because I was the one who was actually scared about that happening to me because it already happened once where I was getting pressed about it. And it was, and in all honesty, because I grew up in a culture with people from different religions, I was friends with people who were Christians, Buddhist, a Jew, Muslims. I was friends with like almost all of them. Not everyone, but I was friends with people from many different backgrounds. Every person, I was like, you know what? That's your beliefs. That's cool. Believe what you want to believe. Never once did I say anything disrespectful. But of course, while that was happening, I was being disrespected as a person. I was being pressed. I was going through a lot of stuff in my life, but all I wanted was just to be accepted. And I never received that until I did something impressive, or until people actually started to warm up to me. Like I should have received that maybe the first time I was ever encountered. But no, it took a while. It was still getting the rude looks, the side eye, the judgmental thoughts probably. That probably still even continued even after I became friends with people. But it's all not how you're supposed to show Christ to people. You're not supposed to be rude to people. You're supposed to be welcoming. If Jesus was to tell us, hey, only hang out with the people that are Christians like us, then why was Matthew ever a Christian? Why did Matthew ever become one of the 12 disciples? Matthew was a tax collector from what I remember, and from what I remember in that time period too, tax collectors were seen as huge sinners. You see where I'm going with this? We shouldn't be we shouldn't act like this towards people. Christians should not be this way. We ought to be very nice to people. We ought to describe, hey, this is what Jesus did in my life. We ought to invite them to church. If they say no, that's okay. We try again another time. If they want you to stop bothering them about it, then we stop bothering them about it. Be respectful of other people. The worst thing anyone can say to you is no, I don't want to go. All right, that's fine. Then they don't want to go, they don't want to go. That's okay. But like we shouldn't be putting people down because they don't want to go. We shouldn't be pushing God on people. Do you really think that you have the force to bring a person to God? Because let me tell you, you're not God, you're not Jesus. You need to plant the seeds to people, and that's how they will come to. And it will be up to them whether or not they decide to accept Christ in their life, and it will be whatever God puts down in their heart to accept Christ. The best you could do is tell people about it, but not judge people. And if just try to think about yourself in that if you were in their position, because I can, because I was in that position, and it has happened to me. I've been told many times when I wasn't a Christian I was gonna go to hell. I was told many times like that oh, if you don't go to church you're gonna go to hell. All this stuff. I was told all of it. And well, I mean, I'm different now, and I didn't do it because anyone ever told me I was gonna go to hell for it. I did it because I was led to do it. I did it because I eventually got planted seeds when I was 17, and learned about what people really should be treating other Christians as like, And although yes, these people did lead me to Christ, did they turn on me afterwards? Absolutely, but you know what? We can't fix people. We're not able to do that. That is something that Jesus can do, and only that Jesus can do, and only for prayer can do it, and only for prayer and conviction can do it. And let me just tell you, you don't have that power. You don't have that power to change people. You can't do that. You can do some things, but you can't do that. You may be able to do all things through God, but you cannot change a person's heart solely on your own. It is through God that can only happen. It is them being convicted that can happen. You cannot control another person. You are not the Almighty Creator. Because if you were, I don't know, this world would not be this like how it is right now. It would probably be a lot worse. You do not want to be in the position of power that God has. It is probably a rough one for him. But he's able to do it because he made everyone. He made the world. He made the universe. He is the reason we are here, living, breathing, doing whatever we can. But of course, with our fleshly desire, we want to do what we want to do, right? And if that means being rude to an outsider, it means being rude to an outsider because they may not believe the same things you believe. So you want to convict them and tell them that type of stuff when that shouldn't be told to them. That's how you scare people. And although yes, maybe And although, yes, it's truth, it's not about believing God, by the way. It's about having a relationship with Jesus. That is the one thing that you need to get into heaven. And there's a verse to prove that. Let's read it right here. Matthew 7:21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name and cast out demons in your name and do many mighty works in your name? And then will I declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. And that's basically saying that if you don't have a relationship with Christ, that is the only way. It's not about believing God. It's not about following works and doing works. It's about having a relationship with Christ. And if you want to represent your relationship with Christ to a non-believer, you have to do it in a kind way. Because Jesus was kind to everybody. What would Jesus do? Jesus would welcome in everybody. Jesus would hug anybody. You know, he cleansed people that were feared. He cleansed lepers. He cleansed lepers, you know? And that is why, like, I don't think we should be so hard and so harsh on people who don't believe in God. You don't know what people are going through in life and maybe how many experiences they had with this stuff. You know, luckily God found me at the right time. But of course, it's on his timing, and he found me at the perfect time. And it was by seeing how other Christians acted during that time period, or yes, they may have been nice to me eventually at first, and then eventually they were rude to me, but it was at least in the beginning. Yes, that did lead me to Christ. And although I may not talk to a lot of them now, I'm in another church, and these ladies, they have heard some wild stories about me. They have been nothing but loving to me this entire time. These people that I'm friends with at church now, while my husband was away for a little bit, they were nothing but loving on me, praying for me, and I just felt the love of Jesus. And they helped me to get back into faith again. They helped me to repair my relationship with Jesus. They helped me to be back on fire again for the Lord. And those are the people that we should be to non-believers. We should be like that to them. We should be loving people because that is what we are supposed to do. If God wasn't loving, he would be completely different. If Jesus wasn't loving, he would have never did half of the stuff that he did. I believe. So all in all, what I'm trying to preach here is that if you're a Christian, preach, but preach with love. Be kind to your neighbor. Be kind to your neighbor. Don't judge the plank in the other person's eye. When you yourself definitely have, the speck in your brother's eye, when you yourself definitely have a log that you need to pull out and is stuck in there and is lodged in. We don't want to be bad examples of Christ. If we're gonna preach, we want to preach in love, not and although maybe some of it is convicting. If we're approaching non-believers, we want to approach in love and just spread the gospel. Some people may not receive it well, and that's okay. You don't know what they've been through in life. But for those who are interested, be kind to them. Be loving towards them. Show them what it really means to be a Christian. Show them what Jesus actually has done in your life. Don't show them the desires of flesh, the desires to be rude and nitpicky. You are not the judge. Only God is the judge. You will not determine whether that person goes to heaven or hell. If you really want someone's soul to be saved, then you ought to preach to them. You ought to share first of all, your testimony, and then you also ought to share about God's good grace, about how he gives us grace, about how he loves us. That is what needs to be shared. I hope you guys did take away a good message from this video. And if there are non-believers who are watching this, look, not all of us Christians are hateful, okay? We're not supposed to be hateful. We're supposed to be loving. But unfortunately, the flesh does have a strong desire on the hearts of many. And we cannot do really anything to fix them, but it's a work in God that person has to do to repair that in them. It is something that they just need to pray about, and that maybe we should pray for them. we're not all hateful people. We may not agree with something, but we're not going to push you away. We'll still accept you. We'll still love you as a person. That's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to love. We're supposed to treat others how we want to be treated. And I believe it is something that we should all do. We need to humble ourselves and be full of humility. For pride is dangerous. For pride is evil. For having pride about yourself is how you get destructive. So that is all I wanted to say. And I do hope you all enjoyed this, took something important away from it. Um, and I do hope you all have a blessed day. And if you're going through anything in life, I hope God will be there for you. And just keep praying to Him. Just keep asking Him for whatever it needs that you need to get done. Remember, God loves you no matter where you are in your stage of life right now. And Jesus loves you, and I'll see you all in the next video.